Oh, for a moment there, I thought it was a Friday night in my childhood, or perhaps later, any weekday afternoon after school on TBS. But nope, that's just the Family Matters theme song, and this is Boob Tube Boys, a TV show podcast with three friends. I'm Brian Vaughn. With me are Van Lee.
Brian, get the hell out of my house.
Damn it, now we can't finish the episodes.
But then Brian's over here and he's going like, man, I created an invention which will create goo out of nothing.
It'll make a podcast out of dirt.
Okay.
Spencer Hendricks is here too.
Yeah, you guys have covered Carl Winslow and Steve, so who am I? Who am I going to be in this introduction where we're people in Family Matters?
I think the
you can
answer's
be Waldo
obvious.
if you want.
I was just going
I
to say
didn't
Waldo.
get much to read on Waldo in these two, so I guess
love
I'm just
Waldo.
kind of neutral and afraid.
He's a doofus.
Okay. Well, I can do that. I can be a
It'd be a
doofus.
fun character to get to be.
All I can tell from him and the couple that we did, he doesn't really want any of the action in this one, from what I can see about what
Waldo
about
never wants any of the action.
I see.
He just kind of wants to have a good time.
He knows what's up.
I guess he's like Eddie is like the front man of that friendship,
Oh, yeah.
and he's just kind of in the background.
Yeah, Eddie's popular. He's a cool guy.
Well, he cares about his appearance. He really wants to
Waldo
look good.
is the Skeeter of the group. No, wait, that doesn't work because Skeeter's cooler than Doug.
Yeah,
Never
I get
mind.
what you're trying to say,
Yeah.
though. He's adjacent to the main character in the friendship.
And a little bumbling, a little goofy.
Yeah. Family Matters is a show that I don't really fully know for you guys the extent of this, but for me, I think I've seen every episode or close to it, and just kind of out of convenience in the way that I did with Saved by the Bell.
I think that's an accurate take for me. I've seen a lot of Family Matters. I won't say I've seen all of them. They're what, like 9 seasons? I've probably seen 7. I loved this show when I was a kid for some reason. Really spoke to me. I didn't despise Urkel, but I sure do as an adult. But we'll get on to that later. But overall, I love this show. Spencer, did you watch it?
Not a lot. It was always on TV because it's like one of the biggest known sitcoms ever, at least for people who grew up in our time period. It was a huge fixture in our lives. So I always saw like glimpses of it as a kid, and I did actually watch a few as an adult, like in my 20s when it was probably the TBS version, because I used to watch a lot of TBS out of boredom and just to kind of fill random weekday evenings at that time period. So I did see quite a few that were just in syndication as an adult.
So you knew the whole deal with Family Matters.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I think everyone does, honestly.
Yeah, you couldn't escape it in the 90s. If you were a kid in the 90s, Family Matters was everywhere. Why? It seems just like another family sitcom. Well, there are a few things that set it apart. One of them is not what made it famous. One of them that it is a black-centric family sitcom in the early 1990s, late 80s. There weren't many of them then. There still isn't a lot of representation in media, and I think that is significant and allowed the show to handle some different storylines in ways that, say, Saved by the Bell can't. We mentioned when we were choosing episodes to cover at the end of our Quantum Leap coverage that there's a Family Matters episode about police racial profiling. I am glad this is a show that handled it versus a lot of the other sitcoms of the time.
I did watch that episode, by the way. I did too. Because we presented 4 episodes. We selected 2 to cover. I watched both of the other 2, as you said you have. Tell me about the police brutality one. I thought it was interesting and it handled it okay, but also it was a little preachy about it.
It was, and I think that that's the problem.
Right.
But at least seeing black characters on the screen being sympathetic figures.
Yes.
And I think that that was real. It's always necessary, and I think it was extremely necessary then. So, I don't want to downplay what the show was able to provide in a mainstream way. I mean, we grew up in Southwest Missouri, and at recess, kids would talk about this show, and it's just a bunch of little white kids. And I think that shows that the show did some of its job in helping educate people who might have come from families who wouldn't assist in that manner, helping educate them that this country's not a fair place to be. But that's only a slight part of what Family Matters offers. I just wanted to mention it because I don't want to give the show short shrift when I then say, this is a goofy, stupid show 99% of the time.
And it surprised me. I think I expected more seriousness, which is interesting because having watched the 5-6 episodes or whatever I've seen, it's the Urkel show and it's dumb as shit. I don't know why I thought it was so serious.
Because they do have those moments when they tried, but those are mainly just confined to the first few seasons also.
Because it started as like a Black's family show and then became the Urkel show, right?
Family Matters was conceived as another family sitcom, and it was, the Miller Boyette team and the people who made Perfect Strangers.
Oh, yeah, because the characters Carl and
Harriet. Harriet was the elevator operator in that show.
Oh, okay.
Carl appears a few times. But Carl also, Reginald Vel Johnson, who plays Carl, and Jo Marie Payton plays Harriet. But Reginald his star was rising. He had been in Ghostbusters in a small role. He had been in Die Hard in a pretty big role. And that is what really got the ball rolling on him. And executives at ABC were thinking, let's make a family sitcom centered around this guy. He is so lovable. He gets a big audience reaction in everything he's in as a really sympathetic character. So that's the pitch. This is a show centered more around Reginald Vel Johnson and his family going through different struggles in Chicago. Then Steve Urkel, the nerd kid neighbor, gets added midway through the first season, and audiences can't get enough of this guy. And that character is played by Jaleel White, who went on to continue to be known as Steve Urkel mainly, but he also was in a Sonic the Hedgehog.
He voiced Sonic.
Which
I loved it.
Cartoon show, which is, I didn't know that.
Oh man, there was Dr. Robotnik was of course in it as the villain. He's going to come up later, believe it or not. But there was like a chicken robot and then this weird little tread having drill robot, and they were like comic relief. And then Miles Tails Prower was of course there, and I loved Tails when I was a kid.
You haven't gotten to talk about things you know about Sonic.
I know a lot of things about Sonic. Did you know that in the Sonic Bible, he liked to go bowling? I think I brought this up. He also liked to go to quilt circles.
I don't know that Sonic would even need a ball.
He didn't.
Kind of
he just
is
did
one,
himself.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, he'd ball up and he goes.
Yeah, he does that spin move.
Feels like it would hurt.
Not him.
Get caught in the ball return.
He's got spines.
Oh, yeah. Well, but the employees would have to get him out.
So let me ask this. Jaleel White, Urkel, he shows up midway through the first season. You say were his initial appearances like quick little things?
Yeah, he was supposed to be a little pop-in character that shows up here and there.
And he stole the show.
And, you expect him to just pop in and say a thing like, I don't know, for example,
got any cheese?
Or maybe if not that, something along the lines of,
Can I do that?
These are the sorts of things that made America go fucking ape shit.
And they did.
These were inescapable sorts of phrases. The whole Urkel thing, the waddling around like a frog man, like a daddy long legs on a pond with your pants hiked up with suspenders. People knew about it. People dressed up like that for Halloween. I kind of want to now. And it's hard to really understand why in retrospect.
I don't get it. I really don't get it having seen it. And this is getting ahead of myself, but honestly, I would much rather watch the Carl Winslow sitcom than the Urkel sitcom. I don't find Urkel interesting at all. He was obnoxious in a few of the episodes I watched, a lot better in a couple of the others. This one, he's really not that bad.
No, it gets much worse over time.
Yeah.
The Urkel character being a little dumb nerd, you expect that in a sitcom, so it's like, it may be obnoxious, but
fine.
Whatever. But when the character becomes more of a focus, this isn't a character built to hold that.
No.
So there becomes a lot more magical realism to where he's creating robot versions of himself, actual clone versions of himself that are just hot. Things that don't make any sense and aren't based in reality. He shrinks Carl once.
What?
Yeah, with
That's
a shrink
real?
ray. Yeah.
So is Carl walking around the house
Because
little?
Steve's like he's a
genius.
scientist of no equal. and that's the sort of thing where the show goes off the rails. It became a big problem for Jo Marie Payton, actually.
She left the show.
She left the show in the last season. That's how she'd gone this whole way and was like, I am done. When I guess Jaleel White and some sort of, again, he was trying to be controversial and broke some guideline, and she's just like, I'm done dealing with him, and left. And, good for her. I get it.
Well, there was a lot of contention on the set of Family Matters too, and it was mostly centered between Urkel and everyone else. However, there was an interview series I saw recently on YouTube where it was talking to Black creators and actors and so on and so forth, and they discussed Family Matters with Jaleel White. And there's a pivotal moment where he's talking about he dressed in drag for something or other. And of course, that is a very touchy subject for a lot of Black actors.
You're probably talking about whenever he played Myrtle Urkel.
Probably that.
His cousin.
Well, a lot of the other Black male actors on the show are saying, you cannot do this, Steve. This is you're dancing for the white man, that sort of thing. And he didn't think of it that way because that's an old way of thinking. And I understand why they think that way. But also, I kind of agree with him on this set. It's like, he's just trying to be funny. Who cares? And as we've gotten further in society, they've normalized cross-dressing to, for whatever reason, there's a right way to do it and wrong way to do it. But we often see the other actors saying, God, it was so hard working with Steve or working with Jaleel White. So we had trouble with this.
There is a lot of that.
There's a lot of his side to it as well.
Yeah.
So, and we weren't there. We don't know what the actual answer is.
I can see it being, a divisive thing between everyone involved. Like, we are here in this show to do a family drama comedy to some degree, and this kid's just doing his little bit parts, and he becomes famous at our expense. So you can see how there could be some resentment.
Was this a popular show as far as the numbers went?
Yeah.
Did it make money? It seems
made
like
money.
it should.
It made money and ran forever, and then made a lot more money in syndication.
Is it baffling to you guys that this was a money-making successful show, and then you look at it, and it doesn't look like I don't see the CBS multi-million-dollar, even as shitty as they are, they at least look like that. This doesn't look like that.
It seems cheaply made. Like, in this episode, we see Rachel's restaurant. There's a CGI sign for it that is, baffling.
But you know what? This is 93 or 92 or whatever.
No, they tried.
CGI in 92? Come on.
They had a computer somewhere. It probably took them months to do that. You're right. And I think this is true of a lot of network sitcoms. And most of the ones from this era and beyond we've covered, we've all felt kind of flummoxed at how they ever became so popular.
Yeah, it's bizarre seeing it in this one, but I'll admit it, I did enjoy my time watching Family Matters. I did too,
and this is a real California dream situation for me, where I've just seen it so much it felt pretty warm and inviting, even though I acknowledge it is a dumb show. There are some things, though, I kind of mentioned up top that I think make it stand out, but also Carl is a little less of a blunt force man than a lot of the patriarch characters in these shows.
You know what, though? He does stupid things. Like, there was a scene I was watching, or one of the episodes I was watching, where he says something about getting a piece of pie, and then he's like, Harriet, get me a piece of pie, the masculinity thing. Harriet makes fun of him, and he goes and gets the pie.
Yes.
It's not full-blown that. Like, he says the stupid things, but he learns his lessons, and that's interesting seeing a black dad do that on television, particularly in this era, and I think that's really cool, because we're also at the same time seeing Tim Allen never learn a lesson on Home Improvement.
Yeah, and then we're also seeing Hollywood at the time, I really believe, exploit the idea of, if we're telling black stories, they need to be aggressive and violent and subversive.
Gang-like.
And you can't and this is the same thing that made the Jeffersons famous. Why can't you just show a black family living their life sometimes? Like that just lives in a house together and has stuff go on every day.
Believe it or not, they exist.
Yeah. Now, they don't have neighbors that make evil robots of themselves.
You don't know that.
Well, I guess, I've never met anyone who's had that circumstance so far.
Spencer, have you?
No, I can't say I have.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's a common human experience.
That little groundhog outside your guys' house isn't making robots of itself. And
no, but
it's under there again.
Sure,
is it? Good.
Yeah,
playing it around.
He or she, just every year.
That delights me.
Yeah, you hear that thing under the house, and it's making its presence known. It tells you when spring's there.
Big old ass shaking around. It's like it's time to get up and eat some dirt or grass or whatever groundhogs eat. I don't know. Do they eat bugs?
I don't know.
They could take down a human, I think. We've already kind of talked about part of the cast. I'll mention some of the other principals. The children of the Winslows, of Carl and Harriet, Laura, Eddie, and Judy. Judy bows out after season 4 and is barely there in the first 4 seasons.
She's in the credits, and I've never seen Judy.
Yeah.
I didn't know she existed.
It's a real... Happy Days did this, too. They just like, what? The kid's gone, and we're not going to talk about it.
There's a lot of theories on that, too.
Laura is played by...
I want to hear this.
Kelly Shaneen Williams.
Shaneen. I had no clue, and I was afraid to butcher it, so I was going to let somebody else do it.
I definitely Googled the pronunciation, because as a child, I didn't know, though I could tell you the whole cast's name without looking, from just looking at the credits.
Don't look at your paper. What's Richie's name?
Brighton McClure.
Wow, that was impressive.
Yeah, I just saw those credits so many times. I even knew. I was like, after watching our first episode, these changed later on.
And they do.
Kelly, she's not been in a whole lot. She's chosen a more private life, so to speak. Hasn't really been super into acting after. Eddie, the actor that plays him, Darius McCrary, he's consistently worked since Family Matters, mostly in smaller roles. But he had a run on Young and the Restless for 86 episodes.
But is that a lot or not? Because I don't know what soap operas.
We're going to get into that.
Okay.
That isn't the thing I knew him from doing later, which is I accidentally stumbled upon him in a movie called Vampires Los Muertos that stars John Bon Jovi as a vampire hunter.
Okay, and the title, Vampires Los Muertos, is vampires the
The dead.
Of course they're dead.
Yeah.
Well, they're undead.
That's implied. Well, that's true. That maybe is a switch, right?
Maybe it
Are
is
these
smart.
vampires that can't move? They're just dead and
It's
lying
different.
there?
Yeah, but Bon Jovi's there like, whoa.
And Eddie Winslow was there as a badass vampire killer sidekick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where they got the idea for Blade? They're like, oh man, I bet Wesley Snipes could do that.
Yeah,
role.
well, Eddie Winslow can do it.
Let's get Chris Christopherson in here.
We already talked about Urkel, of course, Jaleel White, and his Sonic experience. Well, a few more characters we meet. Aunt Rachel, that's Thelma Hopkins, who also had a main role in a sitcom called Half and Half, just about 15 years ago. And
About Creamer.
Cousin Richie, who Van just mentioned. I need to talk about him because he also was on The Young and the Restless. I mentioned that Darius McCrary did 86 episodes. Well, Brighton here did 1,601 episodes.
I don't also know if that's a lot or not. I'm assuming so.
That's so many episodes. That's like 5 years.
That's a lot of numbers.
If you back them up.
Because they do like 5 a week, right?
Who knows?
I think. I've thought about picking a soap opera for Boob Tube Boys.
A legit one.
But I don't know what, like Young and the Restless, General Hospital, one of those things. But I don't know where to find it. How do you, that would be
and
tough.
then how much do you tackle of the overall show? Because they go on and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be really challenging.
It's like, well, this guy has twins now, but also he's evil twins. And blah. My mom used to watch these when I was a kid. So,
yeah, mine did too.
Oh boy, I've seen a lot of soap opera.
I don't remember it much because it was like before I was in school. I have like these hazy half memories of being on the floor while it was on.
I had a boss tell me this like 20 years ago. I had a boss tell me that when he was in college, he accidentally got hooked on Days of Our Lives.
That rules.
Just like a regular age college guy who's like on the swim team, like he was an athlete and just a regular person. And he would get home from class or whatever, not have anything to do, turn on TV, and it was Days of Our Lives. And he started watching it and suddenly was like, okay, now I can't stop.
I'm into this. Did you know that one of those soap operas has like mysticism in it? There's like witches and stuff. Did you know this?
Kind of, but I don't know much about it. But yeah, like, and they can come back from the dead.
And I know soap operas have wild shit, like people dying and coming back from the dead and all this stuff. But this one is like true witch stuff. But that's the one I remember my mom watching, is it had this tall, white-haired old man who played himself and his brother. And the one brother was devious and menacing. The other one was like an idiot, like completely like, ooh, dopey idiot. And I would see this guy go from A to B, and it would blow my mind how weird he was being with it. And it kind of drew me in, and I'd watch these soap operas for a bit. I don't remember much other than that.
It's probably your early bad movie inclination.
Probably.
Showing through.
Family Matters.
Family Matters. A couple other people we see. Sean Harrison plays Waldo, who's a clueless friend of Eddie's. And we see Barry Jenner as Lieutenant Lou Murtaugh, Carl's dipshit boss.
Is that the white guy?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I thought he was a recurring character because when I saw him in this episode, I was like, wait a minute, I recognize this guy. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. You were having that memory come back. We don't see the following people. 3J, who's the bad cousin from the bad part of town. We don't see Stefan Urkel or Robot Steve. Myra Monkhouse, who inexplicably is in love with Steve, or Myrtle Urkel, who I mentioned, which is Jaleel White in drag, who also falls in love with Eddie, which creates an unintentionally kind of subversive situation where Jaleel White in drag is constantly hitting on Eddie, which would seem weirdly kind of like, I feel like network executives now would be like, we don't even know what to do with that. Well, what was this show even trying to say?
Did Urkel have like a bad home life?
Yeah, his
Is that
parents
why he's
hate
always
him.
over there?
His parents are scientists who only care about their work, essentially.
Okay.
That's the story with him, and he wants Carl's approval and Laura's hand in marriage. Those are the two things he wants. And he doesn't care what he has to do to get either.
He doesn't understand the definition of no, I can tell you that.
He's one of the versions of these male characters who essentially stalk a woman, trying to wear them down, and it's played for laughs, which is definitely something that was going on a lot in sitcoms.
It's the Zach Braff.
He's actually, he's just a child. I get that.
Yeah.
But he's actually quite disgusting in these episodes with Laura. It's really awkward.
It's gross.
And this is not the worst of him. Obviously, he creates alter egos to try and win her love. That's technically really fucked up.
On the note of him trying to get Carl's approval, that's obviously a thing that just isn't going to happen. And that's a huge dynamic in the show with those two and their scenes. And it's actually pretty muted here. I think there's probably scenes later on where it gets more aggressive, but Reginald Vel Johnson is definitely very dismissive of Steve in these, but we don't see the ones where he really gets mad at him, and I know those happen at other parts of the show.
He gets real pissed at him sometimes and like says, you're never coming back, and then obviously other times he's there. He's always there for Steve when Steve needs him, though.
Of course, yeah.
Because that's the thing.
Good dad.
He's America's dad. Reginald Vel Johnson. I will die on
He
this
and
hill.
Alan Thicke.
He and Alan
America's
Thicke.
dads.
2 different decades, the 80s and 90s dads of the decade. You know what? Maybe eventually we'll have to figure out the dads of the decade for each decade of television.
We've got a lot to choose from. Probably Robert Young.
Ooh,
Father knows best.
he would say he was the best dad.
That's the only dad I know of that decade. The Beaver's dad or something. I don't know.
Sure, yeah. I would like to see a show, and it would have to, it's not possible without necromancy now, but Alan Thicke and Reginald Vel Johnson as a gay couple, and they're both dads.
Ooh, what
and
a
they
ball
raise
is.
the
Sign
family
me up.
together. That sounds awesome. I want
Yeah.
to see that.
Oh, man. You know what you could call that? Thick Carl.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, and then you get both their names in there, but also it sounds kind of gross.
And it also sounds like Carl in Family Matters.
Yeah,
He's quite
he's
thick.
thick with 2 C's.
Isn't there a sexual act that has Carl, like a
Yeah, the
hot Carl
I
or
think that's where
something?
you shit on people.
Hot Carl, yeah.
But Carl Winslow would never do that. Let's get that out of the way right now.
Well, you know, there's a lot of those.
I don't know what his sexual fetishes are.
They exist. What is that? Urban Dictionary? It's a lot of those Urban Dictionary sex acts, which can't be real, right?
That's
Yeah.
what I suspect is people just are like,
Make it up.
think of whatever things they can think of and go on there and put them in to be funny or something.
Like the Abraham Lincoln beard or whatever. I don't know. There's a bunch of gross
Well,
shit.
of course, Dustin Diamond of Screech, which we covered, Saved by the Bell, had a porn video where he did one of those
Did he?
sexual expressions in the video. I believe it was the Dirty Sanchez business.
But we are talking about someone who I believe was under the influence of
Yeah.
nothing good.
He might have done it just because he wanted to perpetuate this sex name. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
some of them,
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
don't know.
The hot Carl or the dirty
And
Lincoln?
I don't think we're going to solve any quandaries of the world. I don't think we're going to be able to get there through a story about Dustin Diamond.
No, Dustin Diamond has rarely led to any solutions, more just problems. Well, not anymore. Before we talk about Season 3, Episode 9, Born to be Mild of Family Matters, real quick, superfan and social media person and Discord pal Johnny Radical, he sent us some stuff in the mail. A little while ago, we recorded a Patreon episode unboxing it, opening it. So head over to patreon.com/Bootu Inc. and listen to that. You can subscribe for free. We've also done recaps of full seasons of shows, of Beef, of True Detective Night Country.
There's a Dune thing up there.
We do have Dune parts 1 and 2, 3 years apart. We have recaps of those. So Squid Game as well. So lots of good stuff on there and some nonsense. But one of the items in the box we got from Johnny Radical, we were going to name it on the Patreon, decided no, we should do that on one of our main feed episodes. So here we are, naming a giant inflatable pickle.
Yeah, when we opened up these boxes, I assumed it was that Jesus show thing, Larry the Cucumber or whatever. It is not. This is a pickle, and I won't say precisely where it's from, but it's from Johnny Radical's work because they have some sort of pickle fetish. You know, there's an old man. But he has a bunch of these. He sent it to us, and it's just a big inflatable pickle. I got it inflated. It's got a little smiley face on it. It's kind of gross. It stares at me while I sleep. But we need to name this guy, and it's going to be the mascot of the studio, not our true mascot because that's Bootu. But
Right.
so what do we
He
think?
could be a friend.
What do you think when you see this visage staring at you, smiling?
Okay, so some of the
Unwavering.
things coming to my mind right away. Gherkin. You know, just pickle words.
Because that's a
Brine.
pickle. Mhm,
Yeah, I
sure.
can't get past the pickle element, that's for sure.
Green, that's, you know, an adjective that could get in there. I don't know.
Domineering.
Obviously, he's also smiling, though.
He's a happy
And
grin
he is
boy.
grinning.
He's kind of moon shaped or pickle shaped
Yeah.
because I
He,
guess they
he has
curl.
a bit of a crescent bend to him.
Do pickles bend? They have little bends. I thought
Good,
they
yeah.
were
If you
straight.
get a
Some
long
of
one,
them do.
you can bend them a little bit before they
They
snap.
snap.
Yeah.
But isn't that like the classic pickle? You got to snap my pickle. I'm a stork.
Why did they choose that as a mascot for pickles, a stork?
A Groucho Marx stork.
This
I don't know if they did.
anthropomorphized pickle makes more sense.
What about Groucho? There's a good name.
Yeah.
Groucho here.
Sure, let's put a cigar in his mouth, give him some big eyebrows.
Pickle Groucho. Are we in agreement here?
That's fine.
Groucho
I
the
don't
pickle.
dispute that at all. Groucho the pickle.
You
it
have
works.
been
It makes
born.
sense.
I'll hang him from the ceiling so he can watch us talk.
And he's been watching over us from the corner this whole time.
Put it on a really long string so he sways back and forth.
Oh, in the wind.
Maybe like hits us in the head every now and then
Just as a reminder that Johnny Radical loves us.
of where we came from.
Our pickle origins.
We were all pickles once,
We came from the ground just like a pickle.
gestating in some weird water.
I think we all pretty much understand and know that I loathe pickles. Brian loves them.
Oh, yeah.
Spencer, where are you on the pickle train?
Pickles are fantastic. I don't like cucumbers very much, but I am,
See, I'd eat
I
a
am big
cucumber.
pickle.
Give them all to me. All those types of conical vegetables.
All of them.
I don't
Name them.
know. pickles, cucumber,
Got it. We're good.
zucchini.
That's actually perfect too that it is a pickle because we have inadvertently turned that into a bit of a emergency code phrase for Van to play our clips. So
That's true.
now we've got Groucho, which is kind of like he's part of the lore now, and
Yeah.
he
Kind of a clip mascot.
he could be the guy who is running our sound. I like this.
Oh, he replaces Sergio.
Yes, there we go.
So yeah, go to patreon.com/Bootu Inc. Check out that episode. We eat a lot of candy, which is great, and chat. And yeah, that sounds boring as fuck, but it's not as fun.
No, we have a lot
Fun
of fun.
stuff.
We're super relaxed on the Patreon as if we're not here. While we're at it, go to YouTube. Van's been uploading all of our back episodes onto there. Yeah, you can also definitely leave us a review, a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever. And we're going to get tattoos of Carl Winslow anyway. This will justify it.
Mm-hmm.
Spencer and I are on Goodreads too. I'm at Loud Guitar Brian. He's at Golden Hat Mick. Born to Be Wild starts out with the usual title card that says Family Matters in yellow over the Chicago skyline. Wow, really took me back.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh,
A little bit of
that's Family Matters for you. That's how it starts. And then we go into Rachel's Place, the show's restaurant of choice. This is like your The Max from Saved by the Bell.
What's the rare condition, by the way, in the intro song where that's the opening line? It's a
For
rare
families to
condition.
love each other and gather around the table.
Okay.
Hmm.
I was just wondering.
on the newspaper page.
Man, yeah, whoever's singing that has
He's
been
having a good time.
eating some cigarettes and is having fun. Yeah. I don't know. The song's not good and I like it. It's one of those situations.
Inside these gentle walls.
Someone does do both of those things.
Oh, yeah.
In Rachel's Place, Steve and Laura are serving tables. They both work there. And Steve's hitting on her all the time, 99% of the time anyway, and says, hey, you smell sweet and like meatloaf that is sour. I don't know what any of that means.
What is sweet and sour meatloaf? Because that's what she says she smells like.
I don't know. I would eat it, though.
It
I'd try
sounds
it.
good, and I don't even really like meatloaf, but if it was sweet and sour, I'd give it a try.
Okay.
It's like they maybe tried a little bit of Chinese food into meatloaf.
Shoved it into some meatloaf
I
in
like
the middle
it.
of
I'd
it,
give it a
buried
try.
in there. Here, you'll find this later. Meanwhile, you got Eddie and Waldo. They're just chilling at a table, having fun, like friends do at night, when the Dragons gang bursts into Rachel's Place and they fling some sort of dork like right through a booth. And at this point, you're thinking these guys are probably cool or something.
This genuinely made me laugh because they're like, oh, the dragons, it's scary, it's dangerous. And there's a couple of guys. First off, the first guy walks in, looks like he's blind.
Yeah.
He's got a stick and big dark sunglasses. But then just some guy walks by and the first guy grabs him and flings him into a booth.
There is no actual conflict yet. This was just started by the Dragons wanting to throw a guy.
Yeah, and they sure did. Loved it.
Eventually, they all file in, and there are more dragons than you think. There's probably like 8 of them or something. And the patrons scatter. One of the gang members is especially large, to the point where he catches Steve a bit off guard when Steve happens to see him.
Oh my! A building with hair! Huh?
Table for 7, geek.
Oh, okay. Coming right up. And that's Mr. Geek.
Burn.
Oh, yeah. A building with hair, guys. How do you think Urkel sells these lines? Urkel talks a lot of fucking trash.
He really does. It surprised me.
I'm gonna be honest, I watched like 8 of these. He always is talking trash.
Okay.
I don't know why that is, because he should not be doing that.
Someone really does need to beat him into submission just once to maybe teach him, like, tone it down, be a little quieter.
Well, he'd probably just invent something to beat them up. I mean, they don't want to do that. He'd make a Godzilla or some shit.
Or just keep coming around.
Yeah, which is worse. As we'll find out later, even the gang doesn't want him around. Well, time for the theme song. We already talked about that, basically. Did you guys know that for the first 5 episodes, it was What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong?
Wow.
Saw that. That's bizarre. And
I don't remember that.
I watched it with the intro sequence and heard that, and it does not, I don't know, it doesn't give you a good vibe. It just feels weird.
The only way I could go for that is if it was a cover that they had Reginald Vel Johnson sing. That I would like to hear that.
Well, that, of course, melts everyone's hearts.
Well, it certainly wouldn't be as Grover's. As the skies blue. Man, that guy, what's his name?
Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong. He is quite a voice.
It's amazing. It sounds more like a trumpet than his trumpet sometimes.
Right.
It's a positive song. I don't know where I read it, but there's been mentions of how when movies use it, it's always in an ironic fashion.
Every time.
It's always slow motion,
When movies
horrible
use
shit
anything,
happening.
it's in an ironic fashion.
You see that now, that song, and you're expecting it's like, because this is a terrible scene and terrible things are happening. You don't ever see it. And he seems like he was having the best day of his life when he wrote that song. It's all just happy imagery.
He probably was.
He probably always had the best day of his life.
Tooting that horn.
This is one of those credit sequences, by the way, where everybody's caught mid-action and then they turn and smile at the camera.
It's not good. It is not pleasant.
There's one part that's real good, which is how Reginald Vel Johnson's walking down the stairs in a sweater vest, just holding a book. He's been up probably in his reading chair, reading a book all cozy with a cup of coffee. Comes down the stairs. Oh, I didn't see you there, camera. Looks right at us, and I wanted to hug him.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why no one, though, that set up these intro sequences ever had the thought of maybe we should be the show that stops doing this.
It does something different.
It just took over for so many of the shows we've covered have had this, and it's so annoying.
Another very notable thing is the character of Mother Winslow, who we don't see in this episode. She's in our next one quite a bit. And I'll talk more about the actor when we get there. But she is 1,000 years old, and she's on the porch reading a Rolling Stone magazine, which is supposed to make her cool and edgy because her character is coded that way. But with U2 on the cover?
Well, this was going to be my question. Do you think that is the reasoning? They want to make you show that she's edgy, or was it just a magazine they had and resolution was bad, so whatever?
I think they're trying to make her cool, like young people read, because her character is always doing stuff that you're like, Grandma.
Yeah, well, we see that next episode for sure.
Right. And it's pretty awesome, honestly, next episode.
Well, on that note, actually, I was kind of surprised. Yes, it has U2 on the cover. This is the March 1988 edition of Rolling Stone.
Still hanging around for?
I looked it up.
This is the 1991 episode.
But did they have this intro for a couple years? I don't know.
They did.
So that might be it. But I looked it up. I could not find the actual online version of that magazine.
That would have been fascinating.
But I did happen to find the music charts from it because they had those. So this is just a little peek of what the Rolling Stone magazine music charts look like in 1988. For the U.S. singles, I'll just give you the top 10. We'll go through them quickly here. We had Tiffany doing Could Have Been.
What?
Expose, Seasons Change. I don't know that one. In Excess, Need You Tonight. I know that song. Foreigner, Say You Will. 5, we have the Bangles doing Hazy Shade of Winter. Number 6, Eric Carmen, Hungry Eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Those eyes need some protein. I don't know that song. Number 7, Pet Shop Boys, What Have I Done to Deserve This?
That song's cool.
It's a good song. Roger, at number 8, has the hit song, I Want to Be Your Man. At number 9, we have George Michael's Father Figure. And then number 10, Paul Carrick's Don't Shed a Tear. I only know 2 of those songs.
Yeah, I don't know as many as I figured I
know
would.
the artists or the bands, but not those specific songs in most cases.
Concurrently, we also have the music videos list.
Because those did exist by then for a few years.
They were getting fairly popular at this point.
Thriller had already come along and proven wow, there's a future here.
People were already saying things like, I want my MTV.
Well, there's a couple of duplicates here. We've got number 1, the Bangles, Hazy Shade of Winter. So we've already seen that one. Foreigners, Say You Will's number 2. Number 3 on the music video list and not on the singles list is Bruce Springsteen's Tunnel of Love. Let's see. Let's skip a few here. Elton John's Candle in the Wind is number 6.
Definitely know that one.
Number 7, we talked about him in our Dune episode. Sting, he's here with Be Still My Beating Heart. John Cougar Mellencamp comes in at 8 with Cherry Bomb. Pink Floyd, On the Turning Away is number 9. And Pink Floyd in the 80s, 90s. Not a good Pink Floyd.
Nope.
Not even the original one.
It's not even actually Pink Floyd, really.
Yeah. Europe, they have a song called Cherokee that comes in
Europe
number 10.
had a second hit.
Yeah, not just
Final Countdown.
Yeah. Almost said The Final Sacrifice.
What if they had been involved with that?
That'd be great.
Oh, no, only Canada was involved with that.
And that was number 10. Of note, on the music video list, we also have number 20. I wanted to bring up. That's Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up.
Of course.
Which, of course, has had a great lifespan.
You kind of just rickrolled us.
A little bit. So a couple other items here. We have the British albums chart. I'm not going to list them all, just give you some examples I thought were funny. At number 4 on the British albums list is the album Christians by the band The Christians.
They should have come up with a better name for that.
Well, how about this name? Number 5, we have the album called Popped In, Sold Out, SOULED, like a wrestling pay-per-view. And that's by the band Wet, Wet, Wet.
That really was the name of a wrestling pay-per-view once. Wasn't it an ECW one?
I think it was WCW. But yes.
Was it? Yeah.
Those 2 were interesting on the British albums list. On the British singles list, we have the 5th song on the list. That is the band Morris Minor and the Majors with their hit song Stutter Rap, and in the parentheses, No Sleep Till Bedtime.
I bet that song fucking sucks.
It can't be good. What is the song about? You can't go to sleep until it's time.
Yeah, and they're called like Morris Good and the Bads or whatever. I mean, there's no way that's good.
Couple more here. This is the top 50 albums list, just a few highlights. Number 3 is the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. I found that interesting. Number 9 is Joshua Tree by U2, which of course graced the cover of this episode.
The Rolling Stone, yeah.
Number 19, Brian, I think you'll like this one. It's Permanent Vacation by the band, if I get this right, Aerosmith.
Is that the band that we talk about all the time with
That's the
Steven
one.
Tyler in it and how pink's his favorite color and he likes to get BJs on elevators?
You're really living on the edge, my friend. Yes. And then at number 31, we have Megadeth's album, So Far So Good. So What?
Beat sells. Who's buying or whatever that other one.
No, that's it. You got it. At number 46, we have Anita Baker's album Rapture, which had been charting for 92 straight weeks. That is by far the most of any album on the chart. Graceland by Paul Simon had been around for 56 weeks.
Sure.
But
know that one.
That was it.
So that's the state of music
1988.
from 3 years before this episode, because that is how old the magazine that Grandma Winslow's reading. Mother Winslow. That's actually what she's always called.
What's her first name?
Estelle.
Estelle, that's it.
Urkel also has an ape in this intro sequence. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
Well, let's be clear. We're not covering that episode because if we were, it would have to be mine.
Yeah, you're the ape guy. Yeah, you have... It's kind of like your fetish, like Dustin and Diamond like that other stuff.
And that's why Grandma Winslow isn't really in this episode, because if she was, it'd be Spencer.
Right. And I wouldn't allow that central theme to be Grandma Winslow.
We got to stay on theme here. Before we go back into Rachel's place, here's where we get that hilarious CGI sign for the first time. Wow.
My favorite part about it is that it's not even remotely interesting. It's just a green sign that says Rachel's Place written in like Calibri bold
and
font.
It's too big as to draw attention to itself, which is not what you want to be doing.
But it does spin way too fast.
Again, drawing attention to itself as to say, look at what we did, which I think they thought was impressive because, like you said, Van, early CGI, but it's not impressive.
They just had a diner that they stuck the CGI thing on, which now you can do and get away with. Not so much 91.
No. Inside, Urkel is sassing that big guy again, and he's got more stuff to say.
Excuse me, but do you have a name or just a zip code?
Osgood.
Osgood? Oh, that's a great name. If you're a duck.
Okay, so again, Steve's talking trash. I don't even know what that means.
Oh, I know what it means. Osgood is a fucking great name for a duck.
Well, it is, objectively. Is that a character or something? Osgood the duck? Does that exist?
Not that I know of. Maybe we'll add it to like the Bootu lore. We've got Bootu the sheep.
And Osgood
the duck. I'm going to write this down.
Well, Eddie's getting mad at this point. He's like, this gang's coming into my aunt's restaurant, and I'm a little bit of a hothead sometimes. So he tries to stand up to the dragons. Laura comes in from the back, from the kitchen, tries to help also, but the gang leader, Chain, pulls a real Urkel. And he starts just immediately saying, what do we have here? And hitting on Laura. It's gross. And Laura says, wait, you call yourself Chain? Chain says, yeah, like all the famous one-namers, like Sting or Madonna or Gerardo.
Do you know who that is?
Which one?
He's saying Rico Suave.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. But in 1991, that's a big-time thing. They probably thought he was an up-and-comer.
What about the Weird Al version? Oh, I'm blanking on it, but it was about tacos. Taco Grande.
Yeah.
That's it. Also, is the name Chain because he has a chain? Or was he named Chain and then got a chain because his name was Chain?
There's really no way of knowing. And like, you'd have to ask his parents, who I imagine are probably really polite.
They're first-generation dragons.
First-generation Chains. Laura says, you shouldn't call yourself Chain. You should call yourself Jerk.
Burn.
Which fucking rules. That was pretty funny. She turns down a date. And Steve slaps Chain's hand away and says, no, I'm allowed to be a creep reaching out at Laura, and threatens to fight all of them doing like a goofy windmill stance with his fisticuffs up like it's 1920. But Osgood just puts him on a coat rack and that's all he can, that takes care of him.
That is a sturdy fucking coat rack. It can hold a full Urkel.
It can hold a full 85 pounds?
For a while, too. He just kind of hangs out there the rest of the scene.
That's my favorite part about it is he calmly and quietly sits there while everything else happens.
That's actually one of the little tricks they do with the staging of this whole scene is then they kind of pan off him and they have a conversation with the gang and the rest of the characters for a while. And then Urkel has a line at the end and it's like, yeah, he's still in the coat rack.
Yeah, you kind of forget about Urkel, which is hard to do in this show. Rachel comes out from the back, too. Hey, what's going on in my restaurant? And Shane, he tries to put the moves on her too, but then calls her old at the same time.
When I was a kid, I was too young to understand this, but as an adult, I have to kind of admit that Aunt Rachel is a bit of a fox.
Always thought that.
Wow, I didn't.
That
but
was
I
a
get
real
it now.
childhood thing I thought.
Ooh, yeah.
How old is the actress in this when they call her old? What's she, like 30?
30.
Yeah, at best.
She's obviously older than, like Laura because they're teens still or whatever, but she's definitely not old. Is our age watching it pushing 40 now. Like when they call her old, it's like, Rachel's not old.
No, I wanted to slap the screen. I was like, you can't call Rachel old. Everyone in this scene, all of our protagonists, our regular characters, is acting very bravely, except for Waldo, who very charmingly pretends he is not there and doesn't know who Waldo is. Because that's kind of Waldo. It's not that he's a coward, it's that he's just kind of aloof. He doesn't know. He doesn't want to get involved in all this.
Probably also has an enemy named Outlaw.
Hard to find him in a crowd.
Yellow and black stripes. It's different.
Shane is mad now, and he breaks a milkshake glass, and the gang prepares to break more shit.
Oh no, the boys will come to the yard.
Well, no one's shaking it.
Oh, fair enough.
But Carl storms in at the last second to rapturous applause from the crowd. The crowd also whistles, and that's as it should be.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
I complain when the crowd gets too into it. No, this is what you do when RVJ steps foot on your screen.
When Urkel did his little old-timey boxing thing, the crowd was like going, ooh, ah, sexy noises. No, thank you.
I feel like,
And LVJ?
yeah, most of the show, I feel like it probably was centered around, which we saw, I think the next episode we're going to talk about, but most of it centers around Urkel entering the scene in the audience, freaking out.
Yeah, like
This
Kramer
was
style.
where Reginald Vel Johnson got that treatment. And of course, yeah, it's just infinitely more tolerable.
And he did always hold a lot of audience love.
I'm sure, yeah. How could he not? He does. I don't know what it is.
It's something,
There,
though.
when he enters the scene, you're immediately like, yeah, I don't know why.
And you want to root for him, and you feel protected by him. It's a very strange thing he's got going on. He is almost universally throughout his whole career, and it is not a small amount of roles, chosen to play authority figures, not just cops. There's something to that, I think, where people were like, this guy, like, you would fall in line behind this guy. You like this guy.
He also was a limousine driver in Crocodile Dundee, and he took off.
Forgot about that.
He took off the hood ornament and threw it like a boomerang, and it hit the bad guy, and Crocodile Dundee went, oh, it's a good one there. Something like that. I don't
Call
know.
that a bungaroo.
You call that a bungaroo? This is my bungaroo.
Well, ugh.
Paul Hogan, please put it back.
You wondered why my career ended?
Oh, I'd really like to do Crocodile Dundee 4, if any, I think. Or there might have been 3, I don't remember.
Where are they going to send him this time?
Probably space.
Because that's really all they know to do with him.
Yeah, we got to put him in a different
Let's
place.
put him somewhere else, and people will be like, oh, okay, you're from Australia.
Crocodile Dundee in Canada. Hey, what you doing there? Oh, I'm in a boomerang. Oh, okay, that's fine. The end. What would that even be?
Just shorts, internet shorts, which is probably more what Paul Hogan needs to be aiming for these days. I don't know if you guys know this, but his popularity is waning.
Huh.
Carl kicks out all of the dragons, makes them pay for the glass that they broke, and says, never come back. While shoving a finger in Shane's chest, Carl didn't give a shit. He's not afraid of these guys. So they do. They all leave. They know that they do not have a choice. But we have a choice to go to the bathroom and come back and talk more about how much we love Reginald Vel Johnson.
Family.
We get to see the interior of the Winslow house for the first time.
Big house.
It's a big house decorated like 1980 in 1990. It's kind of got some floral pattern. It's very like earth tony, I would say. I think it's decorated pretty appropriately for the era.
Yeah.
Sure, this family's just a little behind the times.
They're a little
Great,
behind
fine.
the times, but they've got a nice enough house in Chicago. I mean, good for them.
It's one of those things where every sitcom house has a lot of stuff. There's
Yeah.
books, there's just stuff.
Accumulated stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The family's talking about what happened at Rachel's place, recounting the story to Harriet. And they're talking about how Carl is a big-time hero. Richie, little cousin Richie, he's just a little kid with his curly mullet thing. And he says, well, I would have done karate and given them a kung fu sandwich. Everybody thinks that's great, but he wouldn't. Osgood would kick the fuck out of Richie. And it wouldn't be close.
Everybody pats him on the head and says, okay, you did your good job here. We'll go sit down when you're done for the episode.
This is all you get, your little one-liner. And he gets more stories later. He sticks around. He gets into some mischief with his bad cousin 3J I mentioned earlier.
You said Richie's cousin Richie. Whose kid is he?
He's Rachel's kid.
He's Rachel's kid. Okay.
And I think 3J is like some brother they have's kid or something that lives with them for a little while later on. I'm not sure.
Sitcoms love doing that.
Yeah,
Let's have someone bring
we
in
need
a
new
child.
character. Oh, no one's heard of this person before, but here they are.
Is it spelled THREJAY? Is it the number 3 and then a J?
Imagine you have some tape that you want to use.
Okay.
Made by 3M. Just take the M out and put a J there.
Make it a J. Gotcha.
Yeah. After the family's done discussing what happened, Harriet gets a phone call. It's Carl, and he says, I went back to Rachel's place. It's been totally trashed, and everyone panics now. They've got to get down to Rachel's to see what's happened. Once we get to Rachel's, Carl and some other cops are already on the scene. Oh, and it's bad. And Rachel's very distraught. She doesn't know what to do. I mean, she's worked her whole life for this, you guys. Rachel came from nothing and she owns a restaurant, and the Dragons have trashed it. But I think they might have actually added to the property value because there's a really cool graffiti dragon breathing fire on the wall. That costs good money to get done.
Yeah, it's really good. And I don't want to steal the discussion we're going to have later about Osgood's talking about his art, but I immediately thought that was incredible and that they should keep it. And also, I really liked how Osgood was proud of it later.
And isn't Dragons a better name than Rachel's? For a
Certainly
restaurant?
isn't worse.
Dragon's Place. Even Chain's Place.
Hey, you guys want to go out for a bite to eat at Dragon's Place?
I hear they fire scorch all of the meals beforehand. It's kind of their thing.
They mostly just serve whole goat.
Yeah,
but it's
35% chance you die, but it's fine. It's part of the risk. It makes the food taste better because it could be your last meal.
When the chefs go to cook, they have to yell, Draconis!
The whole family wants Carl to just arrest the Dragons, but he correctly says, well, we're going to need proof. Like, we don't actually have proof that they did anything. Right then, though, things are about to change because Eddie walks in and he's looking worse for the wear. His shirt's a little torn. He's sweaty. He's got some fake blood on him. He's been beaten up by the Dragons. Well, Carl asks who did it to him, which I found kind of funny. Like, well, what's this episode about, Carl? Of course the fucking Dragons did it to him.
Kudos to the show, though, because they made him look like he got his ass
He
beat.
I was
like
actually a little surprised at that. And I was thinking, like, did we decide to do the serious one of these? For a little bit, it was like, Eddie might not be long for the world.
Eddie might not make it.
Yeah, his face is all bruised
Swollen.
and beaten up. Yeah.
He might go the way of Judy.
They very quickly, though, make it like, he's just a little dinged up.
And then he's fine. Eddie says, only wimps give in to pain. Everybody knows how I feel about it when people say things like that, because pain is real. Sorry, Eddie. Then he whines because Harriet puts antiseptic on the wounds, and that's funny.
It was pretty good because he's like, oh, wimps don't give in to pain. Oh, Eddie, let's get you home, put some antiseptic on there. But that stuff hurts.
And that is an Eddie thing, too. He's always trying to put on a tough guy routine and then learning that he's a little more like Carl than he cares to admit.
And by the way, you said wimps, of course. That word comes up. This brought up a memory in my mind that I wanted to mention. On the way to Katie's work, there was a sign, like a yard sign with the metal spokes stuck in the median. It was for one of those like sales businesses, had a phone number on it. It said like up to $1,000 a week, trying to say, apply, you get to say, you make a bunch of money. But below that, in a little cutesy font, it said, no wimps allowed. And for some reason, we started joking about this constantly.
That's really funny.
You get to the end of the interview and you've got everything set up. Oh, we'd like to hire you, but we have one last question. Are you a wimp? Ooh, sorry, I can't do this job.
I
I'm a
would
wimp.
have to bow out.
Yeah, you couldn't make it there.
No, it wouldn't matter my credentials up to that point. Like, they could be like, we're all really only looking for like somebody with glasses and long hair that does podcasts about TV shows and then lives in Missouri. And I'm like, man, I'm perfect. Can't be a wimp though. Ah, shit.
Yeah, Brian, we really appreciate your work ethic, and you did a great job on the placement test, but frankly, we just can't get past the fact that you were quite a wimp.
So why don't you waltz your dork ass out of here and never come back? And then they'd pants me and dunk my head in a toilet.
Put you up on a
Put me on a coat rack.
Coat rack.
That coat rack would fucking snap, though. I'm 2 Urkels, at least.
That's how we should describe weight.
That should become the American measurement system. We don't need to go metric. We need to go Urkel.
Yeah, we don't need imperial. We gotta have Urkel.
It would make as much sense as the imperial system does.
True.
So I'm cool with that.
Well, it's about 2 Urkels there. I don't know. How much does that car weigh? 6, 7 Urkels.
It's a ton of Urkels. You say ton, though, still? It's 8 Urkels worth of Urkels.
Oh, and by the way, one of the arcade machines in the back of Rachel's place.
I meant to look and didn't.
Well, the only one I could make out, and it was destroyed, of course, was Golden Axe, which is a very popular Sega game.
Wasn't Galaga, so I didn't care.
Well, you can either play as a big, muscly barbarian,
Of course.
or an Amazonian woman, or a little fat dwarf guy.
A wimp.
Brian, Wimp, we played this fairly recently on one of my emulators, maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, yes.
So you can ride dinosaurs.
No, I do remember this
It
now.
fucking rules.
On the SNES emulator or something, I think.
It was a Sega, but yeah.
Oh, it was a Sega. Okay. Well, they're, who knows? They both start with S.
Or Sega. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they do what Nintendo don't.
Yeah, you can't do this on Nintendo.
Carl, by the way, he's not happy that Eddie got the shit kicked out of him, and he vows revenge on the dragons. It's actually Steve for once that says, I've got a better idea. Okay. Is it? I'm not sure that it is. And Steve's idea is, what if I infiltrated the gang? Me, Steve Urkel. I'm about 5'6", 45 pounds. And they've seen me.
One Urkel.
They know who I am. I'm going to go infiltrate the gang wearing a wire, and we'll get the information we need, the proof, to convict all these guys for what they've done to Eddie and what they've done to Rachel's place.
Yeah, I think that Carl's idea of being a cop and beating the shit out of him
Which was
better.
just to go shoot them all or whatever. Yeah, just immediately police
Brutalizing.
brutality. Do I want to say that? I don't know. But yeah, Carl's thought is just like, well, I'm just going to abuse my power and kill everyone.
Well, that's the thing, because Steve's like, no, you can't do that, Carl. You're a cop. You're better than that. Oh, excuse me? He's a cop. They do whatever they want.
The problem is he's a Father First fan. So he's got to, he's emotional right now. We would feel the same way if it was our son who'd been beaten up by the dragons.
And he might not be heading to, shoot
No,
them.
yeah, he's just going to...
You have to imagine that
boomerang.
Carl in the show can do a lot of cool moves, like MMA style moves. Maybe he's just going to take them all down, tie them up with a rope in the middle of the room.
Do you think he would go as far as okay, not shooting, but do you think he would hurt them like Hank hurt Jesse Pinkman in that Breaking Bad episode?
How did he hurt him? I don't remember.
Maybe.
He just punched the shit out of him, and he flew across the hallway, and then he kept hitting him. So that was kind of but that would be about what they did to Eddie.
I could see Carl maybe doing some pile drivers.
I could see Carl making up a batch that looks like meth, but it isn't, and then he throws it, and it explodes. And it convinces Tuco to let Carl sell meth.
I could see Carl doing that, yeah.
He does seem like he's willing to put his job in the line at this point in the show.
He's mad.
Blinded his kid, his boy. Carl's gonna go with Steve's plan. And back at the Winslow house, we see Carl and Lieutenant Murtaugh, who is Carl's dumbass boss, preparing Steve for this inside operation. Steve says, Danger's my middle name. It's not, it's Quincy.
Oh, really?
I know that for a fact.
Stephen Quincy Urkel. Okay.
Lieutenant Murtaugh has a comedic physical moment here that made me laugh out loud, which is when he wants to lay down the map.
I did like this.
To show Steve where they're going, he very carelessly swipes everything off the Winslow coffee table.
And Carl just gives him a, what the fuck
is
are you
wrong
doing,
with
Look?
you?
No, that was a great touch because you see that in movies with maps are always a really tense moment in whatever movie that they're in, and people do that. Like they've got to make room, so they swipe everything off, and him doing it in this low stakes living room setting is really great. Plus, there's nothing on the table anyway.
No, and it's like your friend's living room. It's a funny thing. And Murtaugh is often used this way, as just kind of and also it's pointed out in episodes. I remember this, that Carl finds it strange that his boss is a complete idiot and was promoted ahead of him. And, I think it's brought up that he's white, and that's why, essentially.
That's good. I like that.
But he is a funny character in this show, and this is a good example of why. Steve gives a big rousing speech to the room and dubs himself the Urk Man, which I guess convinces everyone this will work, except for Carl. Carl really doesn't think this is going to go well.
You know what they should have done is do the Urkel.
Harv! Crank up the music. It's time to do the Urkel. Now, if you want to do the Steve Urkel dance, all you have to do is hitch up your pants, bend your knees, and stick out your pelvis. I'm telling you, baby, it's better than Elvis. Up to the sky and talk through your nose way up high. Spin and dip and jump and cavort and finish it off with a laugh and snort.
Just imagine a bunch of people pulling up their pants.
Oh, I am.
The Backup Urkel Dancer Choir.
I'm still not as perplexed at Urkel's popularity as compared to Tim Allen's in the similar era.
Yeah,
Spencer,
but
what do you think? You agree? Okay, good.
Anything where you would be like, well, Tim Allen this. If it's going to be in defense of Tim Allen, then no, I don't agree with that.
No, so you won't be online writing anything called In Defense of Tim Allen anytime soon.
I don't think so. You guys want to read his biography by chance? I'm
Yeah.
curious what he has to say about
Men
himself.
have dicks and women are stupid or whatever it's called.
It's only 8 pages.
Yeah. All tools and no work make Tim Allen a rich boy.
He puts that in the book.
Parenthetical grunts.
Yes. So there's a clip, by the way, of it's at this comedy awards or something rather of B. Arthur doing the Urkel with Jaleel White.
Oh, that sounds good.
That is the most 90s thing I've ever heard.
Sure is.
Wow. Let's catch up with the dragons. What are they doing? They're just hanging out in their lair, which seems like a party basement, sort of. There's a bunch of stolen merchandise boxes, pizza, beer.
Well, there's a couple of Panasonic boxes in the back, except they can't afford to plug Panasonic, so they crossed out the P and the C, so it just says Anasani. I kind of liked it.
That is funny. It kind of sounds like something someone might call Anakin Skywalker as a nickname. Anasani.
What if he liked Sonic stuff? Like Sonic the Hedgehog, so Annie, Sonny. Huh? Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta go fast.
I'm fine with it. And that's a Jaleel White tie-in.
See?
Good job.
All comes together.
In the gang lair, Shane is kind of suggesting ideas. What do we want to do tonight, guys? He says we could go bowling and rob it. Go to a movie, rob that. I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah, there's a theme. You know, it's like they have to plan on the second part of the evening. You do the normal thing and then you add in the gang thing with that normal
Just as
thing.
a little add-on, a little fun thing to do for
It's
yourself.
like when the Growing Pains boys, when Mike and Boner and whatever their third friend's name is,
yeah, like
What's his
Ratfink
name?
or something, or like
Rick
Like
Denbo? I
Scorcher.
don't remember.
when they're sitting around talking about going to the movie where they can see nude Italian or Swedish women is
Mhm.
what it was. It's just like that, except the dragons rob afterwards.
Yeah. But they do bowl first.
Yeah.
They have
well,
a
I
great
mean,
time.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't want to do that part.
No, that's probably like the main thing. It's like, well,
Yeah.
then we rob it because we're a gang.
You're just out of habit.
Mm.
Steve bursts in right now, and he's dressed in full leather. He's got a do-rag. He does his little praying mantis walk around the room, starts talking more shit, and tells Shane, I'm here to join the dragons. Steve says, I know you guys saw me earlier at the restaurant, but there's a different side to me. I'm the Urk man. I'm a total psycho.
Leather jacket.
When I'm not at work, I can pull off a studded leather jacket. And guys, can Steve Urkel pull off a leather jacket?
No.
Not at all.
That's not that bad.
The real question, though, is, of course, can Steve Urkel pull off a diaper?
Yeah.
You think he can?
Well, I think it's natural. You look at him and you go, he shits his pants.
Okay, yep.
Well, he's no Bacula.
Well,
Never.
God, no.
I couldn't see Steve Urkel being an ape.
You know what, though? I couldn't see Scott Bakula playing Urkel.
What if he quantum leapt in Urkel?
Did I do that?
Sam, you gotta make sure that Urkel doesn't
Well,
get killed by
We
Carl.
could do a crossover. Meanwhile, Urkel's like playing Fate's Wide Wheel in front of a big arena. The shows did line up. Steve keeps talking shit, though, and he wants to explain to the gang, this is why I'm so tough. Well, when I was born, when the doctor slapped me, I shot him. That's pretty funny, too.
It was funny, along with his next motion, which was he walks over to a bag of Cheetos and fucking flips out on him.
Trying to open it, and eventually does, and they go everywhere. There are moments in this show where I'm like, the writing or the moment like is pretty good.
Yeah.
In spite of most of it being horrible.
The reaction of the dragons when he did that to the cheese puffs was actually, they looked kind of horrified at it, which was a nice touch. Like they were actually like, shit, he is crazy.
He's
Look how
strong.
tough he is.
This is a wild man.
I also like that this tough, scary gang has just little snacks around all over the place. It just
Oh,
makes
get
them
hungry.
seem so, it makes it the human side of the gang.
Yeah, you
I
want
like
to
it.
hang out with them, go bowling and rob it?
Some gang member there has Cheeto fingers.
Can you go hang out and then you just like, I'm not going to stick around for the robbing, but they're still your friends.
Yeah,
You just
all
don't do the
Steve
bad
guys
thing
back
with
at
them.
the lair.
I just like you guys for the non-gang stuff.
and
the
I
gang
do
is probably like,
smaller
cool.
thefts to
Sure.
fit in, but I'm not doing a full robbery.
I'll steal from Walmart, but I'm not.
And I would imagine that the gang would be like, I can respect that. And they let people go when they don't want to do the bad stuff. That's what gangs are known for.
You got a couple of steaks last time. That's pretty good. So, yeah.
After a few more of of trying to present his bona fides, Steve says, like, I do my own dental work. I don't rewind tapes. Shane and Osgood, they're starting not to necessarily buy it. Osgood threatens them, and Steve has another zinger.
But it's only fair to warn you that I'm a black belt in karate, and I used to practice in the Sahara forest.
And the Sahara is a desert.
Oh, sure. And now.
Look, I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny too.
I enjoyed the hell out of it.
This is where we start to get that Osgood has some depth. He corrects him on just, I guess, a geography thing and what exactly this Sahara is how they say it. And then, of course, we learn he's a proud artist very shortly.
I didn't expect him to get as many lines as he did, but
No,
it
it's a
was
big
great.
part of the
It was a good
episode.
thing he did.
I like Osgood.
Good name for a duck.
Carl and Lieutenant Murtaugh, they're still listening in through the wire in their undercover van. Murtaugh is not paying any attention. He's playing with some fake handcuffs he bought, even though he has real ones because he's a cop. And he says, you don't even need a key for these. There's like a release point on the actual handcuffs. You know how this is going to play out before it does. He handcuffs himself to Carl and they can't get it to unlock. Carl is mad.
He should be.
What are they going to do? They need to save Steve because back in the Dragon Lair, Steve eventually does get Osgood to confess both to many of the crimes committed by his gang, the Dragons, and the depth and artistic choices beyond the graffiti he did in Rachel's place. And Spencer, you hinted at this, but it's a fun twist that Osgood is the artist.
And proud of it.
Very proud. He's like, my work was wonderful. It's a big part of my life. I enjoy doing it.
I think that's the draw for Osgood. People think he's the muscle and like the enforcer, but really he's there just to look like that. While meanwhile, he's the artist. He's the gang artist. Every gang needs one.
And it was right here, and I mentioned this earlier, I realized Osgood is shaped like Dr. Robotnik. He's just a big Eggman.
Do you think that's why Jaleel White personally felt so much animosity toward him?
I believe so, because as we know, Dr. Robotnik, he doesn't like Sonic. He's after the Chaos Emeralds.
Shane shuts this conversation down because Osgood's talking too much. He is openly saying, we trashed Rachel's place.
Well, IANAL, but I don't know if this confession would hold up in court.
It all kind of seems like he's being set up to answer that way. He doesn't really directly say it, so it's very off the cuff. It's rushed.
It's a sitcom confession, if you will.
Sure.
Well, and he's black, and as we know, in the 1990s in America, you don't really need proof. You can just arrest them just for being who they are.
Pretty messed up. Still like that pretty much in plenty of areas. Shane asks Steve, which version of you is real? I can't figure it out. The tiny nerd who talks about cheese and asks if he did that or not? Or this guy who doesn't rewind tapes? Then he rips out Steve's fake earring and the jig is up. Uh-oh. Shane discovers the wire and Steve darts away, confidently talking into his chest. Come on, big guy. That's what he calls Carl all the time. And Carl wants to, but the problem is Carl and Murtaugh are taking too long because they're handcuffed to one another. They do get there eventually. They burst in the door side by side, scooting around in synchronized fashion, masking the fact that they're handcuffed together. Carl says, Steve, I'm really proud of you. You did a good job, this is all Steve's ever wanted, is to be told that.
Came right in his pants.
No, that's when he sees Laura in our next episode.
My bad.
The criminals file out to be arrested. That's it. Carl got the Dragons, Carl and Murtaugh. Steve mistakes Carl and Murtaugh, by the way, sidling around weird as them being cool, collected, and confident, not handcuffed together.
Okay, Murtaugh had Lethal Weapon came out before so do you think...
You would think so, though. That's Danny Glover's character, so that's weird.
He is? I thought that was Mel
That's
Gibson.
Riggs.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. But that is true. That is strange.
Fucked it up.
Now that all the stress and tension that I know you guys were feeling while watching this is over, one more time we're back at Rachel's. The whole Winslow family is celebrating the resolution of the episode. Yay! Carl says, Steve, you're a hero. Steve swoons and says, well, I've got a sandwich on the menu. Laura says, yeah, it's mostly bologna. End credits.
It's pretty good. Well, by the way, the Urkel sandwich, I think that's that sandwich Spencer was talking about a couple episodes ago, like made of shrimp. And there's like,
oh yeah,
like room temperature mayonnaise.
Which is disgusting. Well, there'd have to be cheese on it.
Capers and pickles and just like
capers,
like mushrooms, just the nastiest stuff. That's the Urkel sandwich.
Like some toes,
like a bowl of fish sauce to dip in. Ugh.
So that's it for Born to be Mild, our first of 2 Family Matters episodes. We'll be back to talk about it again next week. We already pretty much discussed it, but this is pretty fun to watch, real easy to digest.
There are funny little jokes here and there. I think my biggest takeaway from after watching this first episode was I went, that's it? It's already over? It went by like that. It felt like a breeze. And usually, even on these 30-minute sitcoms, it feels like a slog. But this was not a drag. It just, I don't know.
It was breezy. I agree. Yeah, it's dumb the whole way, but it does it quickly, and it's pretty unobjectionable.
I think the cast is actually a little more capable than some of the similar shows of the era, too. So, like, we do have Reginald Vel Johnson in there, you know. Most of the adult cast is pretty good at like, holding down the fort.
And Urkel was Urkel, of course, but I didn't get annoyed with him this episode like I did. Not necessarily in our next one, although he was annoying there, but in some of the additional episodes I watched.
Past these few seasons we're covering, I mean, it gets ridiculous.
It's absurd. He's on the screen every second. He's noisy. It's
and
too
there's
much.
another factor, a real physical factor, which Jaleel White became an adult man, trying to do that voice still and trying to look that way despite being kind of jacked. Like, it just didn't work.
That's why when he had his alter ego Stefan, it's like, oh, that's Jaleel White. That's what he would look like.
Which
A
almost
handsome guy.
Yeah, and it almost makes the Urkel character even less believable once you've seen the full deal. Will we see the full deal next week? No, but we might see the full deal from some other men. Oh, I don't know. So we're going to go get some fake IDs. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Even though we're old enough. We'll be back next week, and we're going to Club Buff.
He would not be allowed.
Do it. Now point your fingers up to the sky and talk through your nose way up high. Spin and dip and jump and cavort and finish it off with a laugh and snort.